Hello makers, and welcome to Share Stitchery. I'm Catherine Harris, and this is your spot for all things sewing and DIY, so smash that subscribe button down below. This week, I wanted to share with you a bit of a review as well as how I customize my wigs. So I do have this lovely wig, and this one I got from Isee Hair, and I will link the exact one down below for you. And this one happens to be a 4x4. So what that means is we have a lace front, and it covers 4 inches by 4 inches deep for the part. And then it just has a regular side here with the closures, rather than having the full frontal lace. Now, one of the benefits of this is the fact that it is more cost effective, but it can be a little tricky wearing this just because you can kind of see those closures because you don't have the lace going all the way down. That being said, I'm going to show you how we can dye and customize this wig along with the part and some baby hairs to really make it shine and look a little bit more natural than it does when coming out of the box. So I wanted to share with you a very quick unboxing. So I wanted to start by showing you what the packaging came in. Came in a very nicely bubble wrapped package to make sure that absolutely nothing was damaged. And then it came in this nice little box here. And if you wanted to, you could restore your wig in that. I do hang my wigs up because I do style them. And there's a lot of extra goodies that I actually wasn't expecting. So it came with a wig cap. So if you didn't have one on hand, you got these free 3D lashes as well as the wig itself. So let's unbox this wig here. So it comes with some netting that helps to protect the wig with travel. And I'm just taking that off. And then we have some tissue paper inside. And this is what the hair looks like. And it is quite nice here. It is a bit thinner along the ends, but I think that that's really natural. And then I wanted to show you the inside of the wig cap as well as the 4x4 lace closure here and the little combs that we have. And so now that I've gotten it out of the box, I thought we would go through and talk a little bit about my initial thoughts. So I have just been running my fingers through the wig, and I've gotten one little hair here, but other than that, not a lot of shedding going on right out of the box. So I thought we would comb her hair and just see how that works. And so you can see going in here, and I'm just going to check. And there is, I do see one little hair in here, maybe 2. It could be the same one because it is long. This one is the 22-inch length hair on this, and it is 150 density. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the back, and it's actually quite dense at the back here, and it does taper down, getting a little bit more narrow along the ends here. That being said, that is exactly what natural hair does, and this is real human hair. So you can dye it and style it just as you would your regular hair. One thing I have noticed, so this is the 613 color, meaning it's been bleached and prepped and ready for me to dye. And I have noticed 1 or 2 little stray hairs that are a little bit darker brown in the mix in this, and that doesn't bother me one bit. I am going to be dyeing this, and in fact I think it gives it a little bit of dimension because real human hair isn't all exactly the same color with every single strand. So it is going to look a little bit more natural. Now that may bother some people, but for me that really doesn't matter too much. Now, just looking at the top, we do have some shorter pieces of hair just along the top up here, which I will show you a couple of tricks on keeping those down so that you don't have those flyaways kind of coming up. And let's get into what we are going to do first with this wig. But before we do that, I thought I would try her on so you could see what I look like before any customization and before she's even been toned and dyed. So this is the wig right out of the box here. And I think that the part is, or the hairline here is actually quite nice, but we are going to do some customizing to it. And just thought I would share with you what that looks like so far. I haven't fully installed it because I am going to be dyeing it first. I want to leave this lace intact as well. I still have my ear flaps on. I will show you in a bit how to take care of that. So if you like this color, by all means, You could wear it as is and then just skip on over to the customization. That being said, I wanted to go for still a blonde, but I wanted something a bit more natural. So what I'm going to be doing today is first I'm going to be toning the wig before I dye it, and then I'm going to be doing a darker brown shadow root with a blonde, a bit more of a golden blonde than an ashy blonde, because with my skin tone, those ashy colors really tend to make me look a little bit more pale. So let's get to toning this wig. Toning the wig. So to begin, I am going to protect my wig mannequin here. I am just placing a plastic bag over this. Later, I did place a second one just because I wanted to be absolutely certain here. And then I am just placing the wig on the stand. So I am going to use this toner from Wella, and it is Color Charm, and it kind of gives a bit of an ashy tone to the blonde to help with that brassiness. Now, in order to protect the lace, I'm using some petroleum jelly and generously placing it on the back of the lace. Now, I do go in on the rest of the wig just so I don't get any dye transfer on this. It is a pain to wash out. That being said, it really does protect your lace. So I have added that second bag, and now I am placing my wig on the mannequin head like so. So you can see we've got the lace coming out at the front, and I'm just going to wipe away any of that petroleum jelly that might have gotten on the hair, because the dye won't take to it if we do have that petroleum jelly on there. You're also going to want to put in some T-pins on the lace to hold everything nice and taut. And I am also going to be dyeing these Remy human hair bangs as well for a side project, so that's what that is. So I'm just going to be adding in the developer here. I actually added in a second bottle off camera because I realized that it is a 2-to-1 and it's not 2-to-1 with the actual dye to developer. So just so you know, I did do that. You can see there's a lot more mixture in my bowl here. Now this one goes on towel dry hair or damp hair. So I'm just using a spray bottle to wet down the hair so we have a nice damp base to work with. You don't want it to be wet, but just a little bit damp. And then I'm combing through with my wet brush here, and then I am making some sections. You don't want to just start lathering it on. You really want to section out your wig. And the way that I like to do my sections is I like to do about 1 to 2 tracks per section, depending on how long you have. For the toner, I did 2 tracks per section, but when I actually go to dye the hair, I did 1 track per section. So then you're going to divide that into about a 1-inch section off of that, and you are just going to apply the dye generously along the top as well as the bottom, just fully coating absolutely everything here. Now, I did use 2 bottles of the developer and 1 full bottle of the toner. That being said, I did run out on this wig. So if you're going to be doing it on this wig, it is 150 density. I would suggest getting double the amount that I had used. So maybe 2 bottles of that toner and the 4 bottles of the dye. You'll have plenty left over, but I did kind of run out and the top wasn't toned nearly as much, which I'm okay with because I'm going to be dyeing this over in a golden blonde. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to rinse this out, and you're going to gently rinse it out until the water begins to run clear. Don't use crazy hot water, and you don't need to use cold water. I used about a lukewarm water on this. Next, we're going to take some shampoo, and just for your knowledge, I use Redken shampoo. I find that that just tends to work the best for my hair, so I'm also going to use it on my wigs. And I am just lathering it around because I really want to make sure that we're getting all of this toner out. I'm also going in not very carefully to get out that Vaseline because we're going to be putting more Vaseline on when we go to dye it again. Next, I'm adding in some conditioner just so that we can protect that hair, especially because it has gone through that toning process. So I am just placing it, focusing mostly on the ends, but just going through here, and the hair is very silky soft as I am washing this. You can see that there's not a lot of shedding coming out as I'm washing it, but I will share later what type of shedding there was after I had brushed it out. So this is what it looks like. It is not exactly straight. It is a little bit curly, which is fine. And then once it is dry, it did go a little bit frizzy here. I'm just brushing this out. Now for the shadow root. So with this, I am just going to show you what came out after that first toning. So we did have a little bit of shedding here. So there's about this much shedding, not too bad. And then I'm using a 10 volume developer. You don't want to go anything more because we're just depositing color. So next I have a 9N very light blonde for the tips. I have a 7N medium blonde for the main hair color. And for the shadow root, I am using a 5G light golden brown. I'm also going to be using this color booster as well. And I got all of these items from Sally's. And now we are going to go in and actually begin sectioning off the hair. So when I section off my hair, I actually start at the top. And because we have a 4x4 lace, it's going to be a little bit of a U shape at the top. And I'm just going to section off the lace bits in 2 larger bits. We will section those into smaller bits when we get to it. So I like to twist it up at the top and then use an alligator clip to come in. And so you can see I'm sectioning it off right where the tracks begin and the lace ends in 2 sides for that lace closure. And so just go in with your rat tail comb, or in my case, this is what I use to apply the dye. And I'm just carefully going in and sectioning that off. And I like to give it a nice comb through so that it is not tangly when I take it down and I've got dye all over my hands. And then we're going to go in and, as I had mentioned, doing 1 to 2 track sections. And you're going to want to section those off. I like to do about a 3-inch section on some of them, and some of them I'll do about a 6-inch long section, and I can section those off into smaller sections as I take them down. But really you want to make sure that the width, you're only getting that 1 to 2 tracks as you're sectioning them off, because it is going to help you out later on. And you're going to continue to do that all the way down the head. And I am going to be starting with our brown shadow root with that 10 developer. So I'm going on here, and actually having a smaller brush would have been a lot more useful. And in hindsight, I probably should have used a toothbrush for this. That being said, it still worked. I like the fact that this applicator actually has a little comb along the backside, because when I'm doing my shadow root, I don't want it to be a stark line where it's the brown starts and the blonde begins. I kind of want to do a bit of a balayage going out. So I am doing the top and the bottom, and I'm kind of going down a little bit more in some areas and not so much in others. And then sometimes I'll go in with that comb and comb it down a little bit further, just so it looks a little bit more natural. And so don't forget to get both sides of the hair on this so that they are fully saturated and you don't have little splotches. And you're going to want to try to work as fast as you can just for the developing on this, because we will have a second part. Now, I like to do all of my shadow root first and then go in with the rest of the dye. I just find it a little bit easier to maintain. That being said, if you wanted to, you could do the blonde section at the same time that you were doing the shadow root. I only have 2 mixing bowls, so I didn't have really enough space to be able to go in and do that. And so when we get up to the lace, we are going to be very careful not to get any of this brown on the lace itself, or it's going to dye that lace. So I'm just going in very carefully and getting as close to that lace as I can. And apologies, it's slightly blurry when my hand comes a little bit closer to the camera here. But I think you get the idea on how we're going to be doing that. And we really want to ensure that this area is done the best. Now for the main color. So I am going to be using a medium blonde, and I'm going to use the color enhancer on this one. And then I am also going to be using the very light blonde with a color enhancer. So I've got 2 separate dye pots. So as we're going in right next to the shadow root, we're going in with that 7N, so the light blonde. And then you are just going down. And then when you get about 3/4 down, I go in with the very light blonde along the tips. That way it gives a bit of an ombre and more of a natural look, because your hair as it grows out is going to get more light because it does get bleached by the sun. So I wanted to have my tips a lot lighter than the ends. Than the top of the hair. So this is all of the dye that I have on it. I crazily saturated that, and I did the same thing with the bangs, except I only did the light blonde, not the very light blonde on the bangs. Now get ready to customize. So for this, after I have washed it out, I am putting some product on. I'm using some velvet primer, a leave-in conditioner, as well as a silk serum. And I got those from eSalon. And I have placed a towel under here to kind of hold this in place, as well as some T-pins so that I can brush it out and it can dry on the mannequin head here. So I'm just coming in with the leave-in conditioner. Because it was so frizzy the last time that I did it, I really want to make sure that I put in some product to help tame a bit of that frizziness. So I'm going in with my wet brush, or you could use a wide tooth comb, and I'm adding in the velvet primer here. Now, the one that really makes the biggest difference is that Silk Shine Serum that creates a nice glossy coat. Focus on the ends and just bring it up just slightly to the top of the head. Because you don't have any scalp, you're not going to have any natural oils coming to your wig. And I also wanted to show you a bit of the shedding that went on from that dye. It's a little less than that original toning. So this is what it looks like after it had air dried. So it does have a little bit of a kink and a wave to it, and it is still a little bit frizzy, but not nearly as bad as it was before. So this is what it looks like. I probably could have done a better job with that shadow root. Now for the tweezing part. So with this, I'm using my wide tooth comb, and I am determining where I want my part to be. I want my part to be dead center, which is kind of where it's already at. I'm using an angled tweezer, and then right along that part, I am just taking a comb and I am sectioning out what would be like a section of track, so a small amount of hair, and then I'm coming in and I am pulling out the hairs on that side. You never want to tweeze right along that part, or it's just not going to look nearly as natural. We just want to thin it out slightly, and this wig out of the box came quite nicely tweezed in terms of that part line. And I'm just going through in here and I'm combing back, just seeing what looks natural. And I think that looks pretty darn good. And please don't judge my dye job. I am by no means a professional. I still think it looks pretty decent. Next, we want to go along the hairline. So for the hairline and baby hairs, the initial tweeze. So I am going to go in here and I'm going to add some T-pins. And so on your lace, you're going to have kind of a more thicker part that's folded over. That's where you're going to want to put your T-pins. And so from here, I am just taking my wide tooth comb and a clip, and I am combing the hair back. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sectioning off these little hairs so that I can begin to tweeze the baby hairs. Now this wig came with a little bit of baby hairs already in it, but I just wanted to add a bit more of them, just because in my own natural hair, I have a ton of baby hairs. So I am just sectioning out a section, once again about the size that a track would be, and then I am just pulling from that side. So you never want to really tweeze right along the front line. You just want to thin that hairline a bit so it looks more natural, because no one has a perfectly round hairline. So you can tweeze that out, and then I'm just going to come in on the back side as well and start pulling some of that out, and I pull it back just to kind of see. And sometimes I do come in right from the front and start to pull out some of those smaller baby hairs and then start to tweeze in behind it, just to give more of that natural hairline where it is thinning at the top, and then it gets to be more dense as you go further back. So what really makes or breaks a wig, I find, is this tweezing part with the hairline. So I like to do a second row as well and just tweeze a little bit in here. It's best to start off slow, not doing a ton of tweezing, because you can always tweeze more. You can never really put that hair back. So I'm just coming in and I'm just seeing, after I tweeze one row, how that looks. I'm going to do a third row, just slightly more down, and then I am going to tweeze on that end. And I keep coming back and pulling the hair back just so that I can see exactly how it's looking. And I want it to be a little more variegated, so I'm coming in and I'm tweezing right along that hairline. And then we are going to do one more section here because I think that it could use just a little bit more. I'm doing this one slightly back, and then I'm just coming in and I'm tweezing here. And I am pulling out these sections and then combing back just to see how that looks and lies. And now I'm going to do the same to the other side here. And just as I see how the hair is laying, I'm just coming in right along that part line where you have that front, just coming in on that. So then we're going to come in along the other side. So I wanted to do a little bit of a close-up for you to show you how I am tweezing that. And I know it seems fairly simple, but it's also rather daunting because you are doing something to your wig that you can't change. So if you don't do it right, it's not going to turn out well. So I'm just doing very small little sections here. So working very slowly, taking out a small amount at a time. And so I alternate on that second row from going from behind that hair to in front of that hair. And then another third section. Don't go more than 3 sections back or you're going to look like you have a thinning hairline. It's not going to look flattering. And so then I'm coming here and it's still looking fairly round on the one side. So I want to come in and pull down some of those baby hairs. So you can see I'm pulling those down, and these are the ones that came right from the factory. They actually look really darn good. And I'm coming in and I am just pulling along that hairline here to give it more of a jagged edge so it doesn't look so neat. And we have that all done here. I'm just combing it through just so I can see how it will look. And I'm thinking it is looking rather nice here. And you know, it's really up to you on how you want to tweeze that section. Now for the initial styling. So with this is a heat protectant spray. I also got mine from eSalon. I like it because all of the product containers are the exact same color, as well as being salon grade at a decent price. You're not paying a crazy amount or an arm and a leg, and it comes to you in the mail within like a couple of days of ordering. So it's almost like an Amazon. I'm coming in here with my hot comb. This is key with your wigs so you don't look like you're wearing a helmet. So when you originally put on a wig, it looks really puffy along the top and it really does look like a wig. But when you come in with the hot comb to really flatten that scalp down, it makes all the difference. It makes it look so much more natural. So I'm also coming in along the top and just giving it a bit of lift along the bangs so that I can really showcase that front lace. So this is what it looks like here. I haven't ran the hot comb down the length of the hair. I just ran it along the top to smooth it. So the next step that I'm going to do is I'm just going to section off the hair, and I am going to use my flat iron to straighten this hair. So it looks like it's still slightly wet. It's not. That's that heat protectant that I had sprayed on there. And that smoking is the heat protectant. So please don't worry, I'm not burning the wig at all or the hairs there. So I'm just going in and I'm doing a rough flat iron. I don't want this to be pin straight because I have plans on curling this wig to give it a bit more body. But the reason I'm going in with a flat iron is for the styling in a later step. When we go to customize it, we are going to cut and trim the bottom hairs on this. So we want to make sure that all the hairs are lying nice and flat so that we can get a nice even trim to this. So I am just going on and I am using a moderate temperature on this, which is the same setting for my very fine hair, and it seems to work quite well. In fact, I could probably have upped the temperature setting just a little bit. You can see a little bit of wave still in there, but I wasn't too concerned with getting it pin straight just because I am going to be going over this with a curling wand, and it's more on the adage of making sure that it's straight for our little trim that we're going to be doing later. And so I'm just going in, make sure you get those front bang pieces nice and straight as well, because we will be trimming those as well and giving a little bit of face framing layers on that. And so this is what it looks like so far. And I am just showing a bit of a close-up of me going in and really straightening out those top back pieces along here, because I'm not necessarily going to go all the way up with that curling wand. Now a little trim. So with this, I thought I would measure the hair for you. And in fact, this wig comes in at about 25 inches, and I ordered a 22-inch wig, which is fantastic because the ends are a bit thin. So we are going to go through and we are going to chop it down at that 22-inch mark, which is about here. I'm not measuring it, but it's about there. And we're going in, and once you give it that nice trim, the ends really look nice and full. So I actually really love this wig company because the wig you're getting is actually longer than what it is, because you know, if you've ever gotten a wig, you need to give it a trim when you get it, especially if you're doing any sort of processing and dyeing. This is something that is really key to making it look nice and healthy and vibrant. And so I am just adjusting it here. This is the front of the wig now, and I'm just going through and I'm sliding my scissors down to give it some layers and face framing layers in the front. And then I am going to go along the bottom because I gave it a blunt cut, and I am just going to give it a little bit of texture along the bottom. Fun fact, blunt cuts cause split ends more frequently than one that has layers. So that was something that I recently learned. And so I did indeed cut it to 22 inches, and it is even on both sides. And I think it looks a lot better now that it has given a little haircut and we have smoothed everything nice and down with that hot comb. If you wanted, you could use a little bit of wax to kind of keep those flyaways down. I found I didn't need to use it, but it's definitely something you could look at doing. And I really like the natural color that I got here. And now for curling the wig. So now that we have the wig all done, I wanted to give it a bit of curls before I actually install it for you. And I find it's easier for me to curl when it's on my wig head. I could curl it on my own hair, but I do find that it's a little bit easier. Now, I do have a curling iron that is a 1.5-inch barrel, but it doesn't curl very well. So what I'm actually going to be using is my curling wand here, because it actually does curl quite well. Now it gives a bit more of a tighter curl, which is not necessarily what I'm going for, but if you don't leave it on there for very long, it has a nice looser curl and it does loosen with time. So let's get to curling that up. So we're going to start with the front, and when I do the curling, I don't necessarily section it off with clips. I just want to do a rough curling. So I like to hold the front bangs up and away from the face and curl away from the face. And so I'm just taking it around here and I'm waiting just a couple seconds before I drop the curl. Now I'm not going to be pinning them up because I'm not doing a retro 1950s hairstyle, which we all know, if you're a longtime subscriber, I absolutely adore. And I would be doing it very different. I would probably end up doing a wet set with curls, pin curls, to do that styling. If you want to see that, do leave a comment down below. I'm happy to share that. I would definitely like to get a curling wand that is about a 1 or a 1.5-inch barrel, just so I can get a little bit more of waves and those tight curls, but I'm working with what I have here. And so going through here, I'm just sectioning it off, and I keep going around the head, starting at the bottom after I'd curled the front sections. And for this style, I am curling all my curls in the same direction. Now you could alternate if you want, but I kind of wanted to have them in the same direction. And I am just going up, and so I'm doing all of the tracks first, and then I'm going to be doing the top pieces, which are on the lace. And so with these, you really want to be careful with the direction in which you are holding the hair when you're curling them, because that's going to affect how it lies on your head. And we did all that work with our hot comb to make sure that it stays nice and flat. I just want to maintain that, but also give a little bit of body to it. So this is what it looks like right now. And this is about a day after I had curled it. So I let it just sit and drop. And I also curled my bangs, and then I put one of my rollers in the bangs just to kind of hold that. And I rolled the bangs with the exact same curler, and I'm using a 1-inch roller to roll them up. Now I'm taking a wide tooth comb after a day, and I am just combing through and then using my fingers to comb and separate those curls. So this is another day later, so it's 2 days. Curls haven't really dropped that much. They have held up quite nicely. And now for installing the wig cap. So I am using Got to Be Glued Freeze Spray as well as the Got to Be Glued Ultra Glue. So I place my wig cap on and I place it over my ears. And then I use the freeze spray just along my hairline. And in order to make the drying process faster, I get out my trusty hairdryer and just blow dry that in place. Now I'm actually using embroidery scissors to cut this up. So you're going to want to cut the front, and then I cut up on the ear hole and I just cut right up here, and then I tuck it behind my ears. Now, because it's not a full frontal lace wig, we don't really need to worry about the sides nearly as much as you would if there was lace going down there. So I'm not too worried about this. So I'm just kind of roughly cutting that out, and I want to try to get as close to my hairline as I can. And then I come in with that Got to Be Glued gel and the blow dryer just to kind of keep those areas nice and flat and kind of get down some of those rolling edges. Now for installing the wig. So I install my wig by starting with the back comb and then bringing it up to the front. And we have some front combs. And I like to tuck those front combs under my wig cap on my hair on the sides because it's not a full lace frontal. And then I am just adjusting it, making sure that my part looks good and is nice in the center. And then I'm just pulling it forward so that it is just covering up my front of my hairline. Now I actually come in with the Got to Be Glued freeze spray when I'm cutting my lace. I find that I get a better cut and don't cut off the hair when I do it this way. You will get some lifting on it, but the second time you install this wig will be much better. And I've got some tips for how to do it elsewhere. So what I'm doing is once it is dry, do not put it on before it is dry and tacky. I am just gluing it down to my head here. And then I am cutting up with those same embroidery scissors, and I'm going to make several little slits. Now, first I'm going to cut off those rolled edges on the lace. You don't need those. You will see them. They're big and bulky. They're made to hold those T-pins when you're doing some of the styling and dyeing of the hair and make it a little bit easier to kind of hold on to. So we are just coming in, and I am creating a few more of these little sections. Going through and doing it all at once, I find doesn't give me as good of a result as when I create some sections. So making 4 to 5 little snips so you have a decent amount of sections in there will really help you out. Next, I am going to do the ear flaps. So you can see with the ear flaps, up here, I am just pulling the hair forward because of course we want some hair in front of our ears, and I'm just separating that back, and then I'm going to find where that wig actually overlaps my ear, and I'm making a small cut in here and just going up just slightly so that I can feel the wig slide behind my ear. Now, what I forgot to show you off camera was the fact that when I take the wig off with those ear caps, I actually cut this small little C shape. So I'm actually cutting out a section of the wig to remove that area by my ear. Now I'm coming in here with a razor and I am just slicing it off. You don't want to do any straight across cuts because that will be a lot more noticeable when you melt your lace to your forehead. You want it to be a little bit jaggedy, and pulling the lace taut while using that razor is a really good way to do that. Now, traditionally, I would take my wig off, cut out my ear flaps, and then reinstall it. But because I am doing this tutorial here, I am just using that gel, going over it, getting it nice and tacky, and then re-melting that lace on top of my forehead. So here I am just combing the hair back. I want to get it out of the way because in order to melt that lace to your head, we're going to have to really put some pressure on it. So I am actually separating out my cute little baby hairs. And so this is an instance where if you want to keep your baby hairs a little long like this, you totally can, or you can trim them down to give it a bit more of a natural look. I always think that trimming them down looks a lot more natural. So I've got some that are a little bit longer, like I've cut here, and you're going to hold your scissors diagonally and just kind of run them down. I'm not actually snipping with the scissors. I'm just allowing that blade to go in and kind of cut that hair. Now, if you wanted, you could use a little toothbrush and you could lay your edges. My hair naturally does not do that, so it would look unnatural on me to lay my edges. That being said, I think it makes you look a little fancy when you do that. So if I was maybe going to an event, laying my edges would look very beautiful. I'm actually just leaving them out. So I'm pulling out those baby hairs, I'm trimming them down, making them a little bit shorter near that center, and they go a little bit longer as I get closer towards my temples. So next, I am just using that toothbrush to brush those baby hairs down because when I lay my wig, I want them to be out. Now I'm going in with some foundation powder and I am just going in along the part just to match my skin. Next, I am going to take an elastic band, and this is probably about a 1.5 inch elastic band. I'm tying it up and I am laying it right over my lace. This is how we melt our lace so that it becomes completely invisible. So just leave that on for about 30 or 40 minutes. So this is the finished result for my wig transformation. Now, I am not a professional hairstylist or wig maker by any means, but I have done a number of wigs in the past, and this is just the way that I found works best. So I wanted to share that process with you. And I am really happy with the way in which it turned out, as well as how long this hair actually holds a curl. So my hair is bone straight, and the only way that I can get it to actually hold a curl is by doing a wet set. So any type of curling iron, flat iron, anything, no matter how expensive or how cost effective, doesn't work on my hair. It might curl it, but within 20 minutes to an hour, the curls all drop. Now, this has been days that this hairstyle has stayed on, so I am like absolutely loving it, and I thought I would share a couple of clips of this beautiful wig styled. And so if you enjoyed this video, do give it a big thumbs up and stay tuned for later this month where we transform this wig again. Until next time, makers, let's get our sewspiration on.